Happy New Year's, everyone. 2022. Yeah, I got up this morning. I was thinking about last night, thinking about New Year's, and I thought I'd do like a little podcast today. I got a little tale to tell about myself. I'm going to recap a little bit first about last night, about New Year's Eve itself. A backdrop behind me actually comes from that. I had the pleasure of going to Vulcan Gas Company last night to Tony Hinchcliffe's Tony and So-Called Friends show, New Year's Eve show. Great show. Largest crowd they've ever had at Vulcan for any show, I believe, 350 plus. Just really went well. Very alert crowd, very participative crowd. That usually makes for a good show. So the way the show went down, Tony opened, did a set, and then allowed Hans Kim on the stage. Hans did a nice set. Tony came back, did a set. I'll say more about that second set in a minute because I got pulled into it. And then Hassan, Hassan Ahmad did his set. I like Hassan. He did a really nice set last night. Then Tony came back, did one of his sets, which is one of my favorites, the Slop Top set, the three-way in Louisville, Kentucky. And then William Montgomery was the closer. He did a nice set also. And then Tony came back up on the stage, kind of closed things out a little bit, told us what was going to happen for the rest of the evening. Show started around 9, the comedy ran until about 11, and then they had 3 bands scheduled, so it was kind of a party. It was a party after the comedy ended, and then Tony indicated he was going to come back out and do the countdown before midnight, which he did. And, of course, this backdrop is from midnight. And let me tell you something. They had some serious confetti. At one point, you couldn't see anything at all. I was standing there in front of the stage taking pictures, and I couldn't see anything in front of me but confetti. It was like I was in a blowing snowstorm. And I bet those guys are still cleaning up confetti. There was a lot of it. So anyway, let me come back to what I said about his second set. I got really surprised. Many of you know that I've been doing photography at Vulcan since early spring when the mask law and all that stuff kind of cleared out. And so Tony took that opportunity during his second set to acknowledge me and the work I'd been doing with the comedy community and stuff like that. And he's called me out before on other shows, but not like last night. I'm standing there with my cameras and he says, "Hey, Joe, come on up here on stage." Oh, my goodness, stage. I'm not a stage guy. I'm not a comedian. I'm an engineer. I'm a hobby photographer. I'm thinking, I wonder what that's going to be like with all those eyes looking at me. So I walk up on stage, and, it was really, really odd. I got to tell you, it was really odd. I looked out there, and there's 350 pairs of eyes. And I thought, wow, I like this. I see why these guys like to be on the stage. And so, of course, Tony proceeds to acknowledge what I'd done and naturally had to do a little roasting about me, the 190-year-old photographer that lives under the bridge and on, normal stuff that he's used before. But he was very gracious as far as the acknowledgement. I really, really appreciated that. And I had a little opportunity, he handed me the mic. I said a few words to the audience. So I thought it went pretty well. Got some applause. Walked off the stage and I go back to my photography. And I'm walking along the back row. There's a little aisle there, walkway, access. And there's a table that has 4 women sitting at it. And they're kind of waving me over there. It's like, okay, all right, great. So I walk over to the table. I don't know who they are. And they start talking to me. And this one chick, she reaches out and she hands me a $20 bill. And I'm looking at it. It's like, wow. And I said, well, what's this for? And she said, well, I just want to give it to you. I thought, well, I wonder maybe she's a stripper or maybe she goes to strip clubs a lot and thinks maybe, when you're on stage, you should get a tip when you come off. I don't know. But I will tell you, that's the first time I've been on stage at Vulcan. Actually, it's the first time I've been on stage anywhere. As far as a comedy show, I've been on stages professionally, I mean, in my engineering career. But it's also the first time I ever got a tip for being on stage. So that was pretty cool. I enjoyed that thoroughly, let me tell you. And I appreciate Tony giving me that shout out. I will have to say that made my year. It made the 2 or 3 nights a week I spend at Vulcan or other shows doing comedy photography. It made it well worthwhile. I got to tell you that. He couldn't have, there's no check he could have written me that would have been more pleasing than that shout out. Got to tell you. So anyway, don't want to dwell on the last night too much, but it was really a good show. What I wanted to branch off into was a little tale about myself, a New Year's tale. This goes back quite a few years, back into the 1980s, back when I was living in my hometown, actually. I had managed to find a job back there, a technology-related job, because I am an engineer. And we were living outside of my hometown. My hometown is Elizabethton, Tennessee, a little town up in the mountains, upper East Tennessee. Very much a cow town. And we lived up in an area called Stony Creek. It's about 5 miles, roughly, out of town, kind of a little windy 2-lane road. Had a little mini farm, had 5 acres. That's another story that I don't want to get into right now. So anyway, New Year's Day, my wife and I hadn't done anything New Year's Eve at all, other than probably drink. Get up that morning, and my wife goes to fix breakfast. And she says, oh, we don't have any bread. Like, well, okay. Let me run down into town. I don't know if there's going to be anything open on New Year's, but let me go see if I can find a loaf of bread. So I get in my car and I proceed down towards town. And it so happens, I had a couple of buddies that lived along the way. They had a house that was about halfway between my house and town. And so I'm driving by. I hadn't really thought about stopping, because bear in mind I'm on a bread mission. So I see a bunch of cars in their driveway, and it's like, oh, I wonder what's going on there. So I pull in, check things out. I figured I'd stop for a few minutes and see what was up, say Happy New Year and all that kind of good stuff. So I go in, there's a few people there, and my buddy Steve, two brothers lived there, Steve and Joe. Steve was really good at making Bloody Marys. Well, he was making Bloody Marys that morning. I guess they were getting the hair of the dog because they had partied the night before. Steve was making Bloody Marys, and they were moonshine Bloody Marys, by the way. And by the way, let me branch off into that for just a minute. If you've never drunk any moonshine, there's moonshine and then there's moonshine. What you normally hear of is the rot gut type moonshine, but there's some really good moonshine out there. The boy's uncle had some connections over in North Carolina, and he was able to get premium, what I would call premium moonshine. I guess I would compare it to probably like a premium vodka. It was really good. So anyway, Steve was making the moonshine Bloody Marys, and we were sitting there drinking them. I don't know how long that went on. I think I got over there about 9 or 10 maybe in the morning, something like that. And so the boys say, well, we need to go out to our parents' house and wish them a Happy New Year. There's a few people over there having a little party and stuff. So you want to go over there with us? And I said, well, I'm on a bread mission, but I guess I can run over there for a few minutes. So we go on over. It's another, couple of miles or so from their house out to the family house. Get over there, and there's a small party going on. I think we're watching a ball game, something like that. I don't know exactly. But now this is where my memory starts getting pretty hazy. We're talking, some pretty strong Bloody Marys by this point in time. And we're sitting there watching the game, whatever we were doing. And their father, Joe Sr. And by the way, we got 3 Joes in the room. I'm Joe. My buddy's name is Joe. His father's name is Joe. So you say Joe, at least 3 people are going to respond. Well, anyway, Joe Sr. says, hey, you want to have a drink with me? And I'm thinking, no, I guess that'd be the polite thing to do. So we get up, go in the kitchen. And by the way, this is a Bible Belt country, so bear that in mind. People didn't normally display their liquor openly in their house, just in case some Baptist or somebody came over and visited them. These people are Methodists. And so he proceeds to go to get the liquor. Well, we're in the kitchen, typical, kitchen, cabinets, appliances, sink, and all that. Well, yeah, what do you expect? Under the sink, where all the soap and all that kind of stuff is, sponges and whatever, there's the liquor back in the back of that cabinet underneath the sink. So Joe reaches under there, gets a bottle of Old Charter, pulls it out, sets it out on the counter, says, oh, here's what we got. You okay with this? So I'm not a big red liquor drinker. Back in the day I would drink most anything, but never really cared much for red liquor. I thought, okay, well, I'll just suck it up, and we'll go with it. So he pours us a couple of stout shots. I knock it down, and let me tell you, if you've never drunk Old Charter, to me, Old Charter is about the same as drinking a bottle of perfume. It's bad, really bad stuff. So I knocked it down. We go back to whatever we're doing, the ball game, whatever. Well, this goes on, repeats itself a couple of times. Joe comes over to me and says, hey, you want to do another shot? It's like, okay, well, it's probably starting to taste a little better by then. So we knocked down, I don't know how many shots. And the next thing I know, I'm waking up under the Christmas tree. They still had the Christmas tree set up. It's down in the family room. We were up in another room with the rest of the party. I find myself under the Christmas tree, wake up, sick as a dog, groggy as shit, go to the bathroom, throw up, and I'm kind of trying to get my wits about me a little bit because it's much later in the day. And by the way, don't forget, I'm on the bread mission, which I'd pretty much forgotten about. So I think I go over to the refrigerator, grab a beer, choke that down, wash the taste of the puke out of my mouth. Well, but then I'm starting to, get a little more sense about me, not much. And I'm thinking, well, I'm on this bread mission. I haven't talked to my wife in hours. I mean, this is probably like 4 in the afternoon. And it was before the days of cell phone. People were not in close communication as much then as they are nowadays. And I'm thinking, I better get on home. I was in no shape to drive whatsoever. So some of my buddies, Joe and Steve, I said, hey, guys, I got to get back home. I mean, I've been gone way too long. My wife's going to have a fit. So I said, why don't one of you drive my car and you, the other guy, follow along in the other car, and you can leave my car at the house and then get me home. They said, okay, great. So we jump in both cars. We're heading back up Stony Creek, up to my house. We get up there, pull in the driveway. And I do remember this part very well. I don't know why. A lot of it's hazy, but this part I remember extremely well. So I couldn't get out of the car. And so Joe and Steve come and get me out of my car on the passenger side. They take me to the door, and they lean me up against the front door of my house. They knock on the door, and they go running back to their car, and they take off like a shot, man. I didn't want to be around when my wife came to the door. Well, she opens the door, and this is just like a movie. I'm not exaggerating at all. I'm leaned up against that door. She opens the door, and I go, whunk, just like that. Wham, face forward right into the carpet in the living room. I was kind of all dismayed and everything. She says, what have those boys done to you? So she takes me on, gets me in bed, you know. Sometime later, I don't know how much later. And by the way, I didn't get home till like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd been on my bread mission since 9 or 10 that morning. And so she comes in and wakes me up later on. She says, where's that bread? Is it in your car or where is it? And it's like, you know what? I spent all day, 6 or 8 hours, going on a bread mission. All I managed to do was get drunk, and I still didn't end up with a loaf of bread. So, figure, you'll learn eventually. Anyway, Happy New Year to everyone. Hope 2022 goes well. Bye-bye.